HJA in the house. I'm in the process of replacing the window regulator in my 2005 Ford F-150. I think you're going to need this, get this project done. Vice grips to hold the window into place once you get the tracks loosened, and then a larger socket wrench and then a smaller hand socket wrench. And socket sizes will be 10 millimeter for the bigger one, 5.5 millimeter, 6 millimeter, and 8 millimeter for the smaller one. We'll be back in a few. When taking the door apart, it's really straightforward. You want to go ahead and loosen up the two 6 millimeter bolt heads at the bottom of the door. There's two of them, very simple. Then there are two 8 millimeter heads inside this little panel, which you can open up fairly easily with a screwdriver head. And you can see, there they are. And then there is one more 10 millimeter inside the door. And really, to get access to those pieces, or to that piece, you just pop this open. It comes off real easy. And then you want to pop the speaker grill open as well. Both of them come off very, very straightforward. You can use a screwdriver head or a putty knife, and just be gentle. And that's it. Next step you will see is the door completely taken apart. First thing you want to do is loosen up the two 10 millimeter bolts that are holding the window onto the track. They're in here, and then in here. It's a little bit tricky to get the tool in there, but once you do, it's pretty straightforward. Then you want to loosen up the 5 10 millimeter bolts that are on the door. So that would be this on the outside, this, and then right up here. I'll be back in so these are the two parts you would eventually will loosen up with the 10 millimeter socket. They're a little tricky to get to because the socket will be too big for the actual piece, but here's the other one. So that'll do is it'll loosen the piece that's holding the glass. So the glass will be completely independent of the track system. And what you want to do prior to that is put just a little piece of cardboard in this spot right here, which will hold the glass in place so it doesn't come crackling down. You may even want to throw a clamp up there just to make sure that it stays in place. That's totally up to you. Okay, as you can see, I took the regulator out. It's the old one, and this is the new one. I just make sure that they are laid out in the same pattern, that they're going to go back into the door. Maybe a little hard to see, but that's actually not so much. That's what's broke, and when that happens, the thing completely comes apart. So there are ways to fix this, but most people end up just putting a brand new regulator in, because for 40 bucks you can get the brand new part in there rather than screwing around and getting something that may fall apart again in a couple days. One thing to keep in mind, that you want to make sure that this connector here is the same on both. Most of the time when you get it, it will be, but just double check that it's a rectangular end female with the rounded corners. I'll be right back. To slide it in, you got to slide in the regulator through here, and then you have the bolts you have to line. The 10 millimeter bolts are all in place. This is the only one that might be a little bit of a challenge because it's the only one that really doesn't have an adjustment, so you have to kind of just muscle it in. There's all of them right there, and then you just want to plug in the motor to its new there we go. Okay, we'll give it a try here. Power switch back on, just so I can push the tracks back up because they were down in the furthermost position, and that'll allow me the opportunity to pop the glass or put the glass back into place. As you can see, you can adjust it. See? And I'll get them in just the right nice sweet spot, which is about right here, and then I'll put the glass in. Essentially what we'll have to do, so now we have actually pushed the glass into the brackets. They're rubberized, so we got some protection. And then all you have to do at that point is really get your wrench in this spot. That's going to be the tough one, because you're supposed to do it through this hole, but unfortunately, because it's 10 millimeter, anything above a 9 millimeter won't fit in this hole. Not very good engineering on Ford's part, but what do you expect? And then, so essentially get your socket wrench, give it a few good twists, and we should be good to go. We have everything put together, and that included the 5 10 millimeter bolts, and then the 2 10 millimeter tracks, which will hold the glass in place, and just hand tighten those. You don't need to go too crazy and break the glass. We could take it as try, and here goes nothing. Well, looks like it's working. That's very good news. Never really know with these things. So the next step is to put the vapor barrier on, which is pretty easy to do. You just kind of push the glue areas back into place. My recommendation actually is to not put the speaker grommets and speaker in. Go ahead and pop the door panel back on and do that next. I tried that and it was a bad decision. It was getting really difficult. So let's go ahead and put the door panel on. Essentially they're L-shaped brackets that pop essentially in these little holes, and you'll see the handful of holes where they go, and push it back down. My advice is to have the door lock in the uppermost position and feed that through first when you're doing this, and then push everything down. And of course you want to put the door handle in before you do any of this. All right, be right back. Everything is slid back into place. Just remember to have the 2 connectors come through where the little pocket is here to make it easy to connect this. Otherwise you're taking the door apart 3 times like I did. And then put this bad boy back into place and just slide it in, and then we can bolt everything into place. But appears as though everything is working, and the door lock works. I just want to mention, you don't forget to put the speaker grommets in after you get the door put together. Put the speaker into place with the connector being popped in, of course, and then a 5.5 millimeter wrench to tighten it up. Back together, and everything's working, so you can see. So it's positive. Working up and down. Door lock's working. Door handle's working.